Good afternoon, YouTube and Facebook audiences of Barbecue to You. My name is Jennifer Noreen, and I'm here with the barbecue boss, Gary Parker. How are you, Gary?
I am doing great today. How's everybody out in Webland?
Out in online land? I'm sure.
Online land, the Webland, right?
Yeah, we've had some fun discussions online lately on Facebook about your restaurant, and that was kind of fun. Kind of fun coverage. So I guess someone came down from Kitsap County and found that you were out of food, and they were so upset. And the whole Gig Harbor, the whole town of Gig Harbor went to your defense, saying that the reason you ran out is because it's so good,
Yep.
which I thought was
Yeah,
great.
it was interesting. It's sad, but too because it is a reality that a barbecue joint makes what they make, and when we run out, we run out, right?
Yeah.
There's
So
there's nothing that anybody on this planet's going to do to fix that. At least I don't have enough money to do it anyway.
yeah, we formally apologize for running out, but it is because it's so darn good. So we're so sorry. But anyway, today, as advertised, we're going to do a short history of the Texas Texas barbecue. Gary's going to give us some thoughts, and then we're going to ask some additional questions. We always finish up by talking about the philanthropy and some of the local events Gary's involved in. He's very busy catering this time of year and scheduling for the fall, and of course, the restaurant is very busy. Barbecue is very popular in the summer around here. So Gary, what would be a short history of Texas barbecue? It looks like you've come very prepared today, so
Yep.
we want to give you a chance to show your slides.
Well, this is actually a work in progress. This is
Okay.
something that I've been trying to build out an idea around, and so I do these little short excerpts like this sometimes, and it helps me capture my thought processes and stuff that I'm reading about in the background, right? What
Hmm.
about where did it really come from?
Yeah.
And so what I'm not just going to go into depth on these slides, but I wanted to show you a little bit how I view it in the world. So we're going to go all the way back to the 1600s, and the particular explorer, the French explorers, and the French and Spanish explorers that came through the Gulf of Mexico. It's not so much important for this discussion who they are; it's the fact that they did it and when they did it, right? And the course that they took, if that makes sense to you. And so what the little red line here is, this guy. This is his little path, and I want you to notice that it goes through Jamaica, and then they come up around the Florida, and they go all the way around over to Texas in this case, right? So, and
Hmm.
this is the 1600s, so we're still 100 years before Columbus, hits Plymouth Rock, right? And
Hmm.
these guys are down here, looking at what's going on. Actually, I think he said this is his route that he took in 1519, so we're 200 years before, Columbus comes in, right?
Wow.
Um, and so, but this path is a very interesting path because the indigenous peoples of Jamaica really are where what we know today as modern barbecue comes from, right? Their techniques of either over the spit or in the ground, cooking, right? Really came with these explorers and conquistadors that came through, and they pass them on to the indigenous people of the southern United States. Okay. And so what I do is I'll show you this, and if we step forward in time a little bit, we have this guy here, and he came through, and well, look where he came through again, right? He come through the Dominican Republic and Haiti and Cuba and down here by Jamaica again, and well, there he is. He's back in Florida, and he's coming around the coast, right? And in this case, he hit Texas, and then he went landward, for his view. Okay, so now he's done it too. We'll keep going forward. This is another one of my favorites. Now the French are getting involved, right? And they're basically cutting through Jamaica and doing the same thing again. So you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about, right? There's all this time, and now we're up to the finally up to the 1600s, right? Where these guys are coming through, and they're landing over here around Florida and then coming through the Gulf of Mexico, right? Step forward. So all these cooking techniques got transposed over into the American indigenous, right? Also, notice what I like to point out here is this side, this part of the Florida up through Georgia and the Carolinas, it's all pork and chicken. What's what they're known for? Their pork and their chicken. You see Rodney Smith and his hogs and that kind of stuff. one of the reasons for that is if you've ever studied the sailing ships, they had to have ballast, right? And of course the ships also had food supplies for coming across that long journey from France and Spain, right?
Hmm.
Uh, what do you think that food was?
I
It's
don't know.
tried pigs, right? Because pigs
Um,
could
so
travel. They're heavy. They could go down to the very bottom of the boat to be, they didn't mind swaller, right? And so they could. You still hearing me?
yes. Uh-huh.
Um,
So you're talking about pigs
for
at the
whatever
bottom of
reason,
the
my
boat,
headset this way.
cooking
Oh, there you
pigs at
go.
the bottom of the boat.
Yep. And so, well, they would bring them up, they'd slaughter them on deck, and they cook them, and so on and so forth. Well, that was their meat supply. Pigs got dropped off in the southeast, right?
Hmm.
Coming, through those ships, right, as they made
Yeah.
changes and trades and so on and so forth, right? So in a very short amount of a few minutes here, I took you from the 1500s all the way up to the 1800s, right?
Hmm.
Where there's this heavy influence of the Spanish and the French and the around the Gulf of Mexico and the southern part, so the southeast part of the United States, right? Um, Coming around into the 1800s is another very significant thing that goes on, right? And it's called the Southern Expansion. Okay, there's two expansions in the United States in general. If you allow me to be generalized, they come across the north and they're following the Northern Pacific Railroad as it comes up and goes across the mountains. That's the more famous of the stories that I see told all the time. But then there was also the Southern Pacific, right? That dropped all the way down the eastern seaboard, and then started coming across, the Georgias, the Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana stuff. The Louisiana Purchase is about to happen about this time, and so the Western United States will fill out from that. Um, I'm sorry, the headphone is disconnected again. I apologize. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
One of the other things about the Southern expansion, in general, was they were German and Czech immigrants. Okay, so if you look around the South, that's where a lot of the Germans and the Czechs went, and so it's no coincidence that if you look at the Texas flag and you look at the Czechoslovakian Texas flag, it's pretty close to the same, right?
Interesting.
Um, so they basically came across. Let's see what the next slide I got is. Yeah, they basically followed the Southern Pacific across the United States, and a lot of them were founding these large cities that you see, basically in the Southern United States, and then they hit Texas. And guess what happens when they hit Texas? They meet the Mexican cowboy, right? And what are they doing? They're driving cattle north to south, right? So they're driving cattle up from the highlands of Mexico, around the Guadalajara area, all the way up through the southern United States, right? As they go towards towns like Denver and Chicago, right, to sell the cattle. So this migration meets these longhorns, and you got to remember too, these people were very poor, poorer than you can possibly imagine, poor, right? And so really, they just had what they could grow out in this badlands, and also on the other hand, they've got the Navajo Indians just all around them, right? so so they learned to butcher these cattle, right? And so just like they used to do the pigs, the meat mongers basically would slaughter these and create these markets. And that's, like I've told you before, if you go down into Texas and like into Lockhart and those kind of places, and you look at the names of the barbecue joints, the famous multi generational barbecue joints, they all say market on them. They don't say barbecue, right? Some of them may have added it by now, but most of them will all say market, right? Those are the original families that came in and created the meat markets and started smoking meat in Texas, right? And so there's a big history of, how did the technique of barbecue come around? It came through all the exploration of the French and the Spanish introducing these cooking techniques into the people. That then got combined with the southern expansion of the Europeans coming down the eastern seaboard and cutting west, right, coming across and settling the south, right? And they're all cooking meat, and they're all using these learning and using these methods of meat preservation, which is called smoking, right? And that's the origin of modern barbecue today, right? There's pictures, and I got some pictures there of the Longhorns. These trails, these are the trails that the Cowboys followed with the Longhorns. And if you'll notice, they run right through San Antonio, Austin area, that one called the Chisholm Trail right there.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up next to that, right? That's how I also know if you go study Austin history very much. Um, you'll find out Austin's original name was Waterloo because that was the watering stop, right, for these large cattle drives, right. And then later, when Stephen F. Austin and Sam Houston, settled the war with Mexico, right, and the French, right, these towns all got renamed to Austin and Houston.
Fascinating. Wow.
Okay.
A little
Um,
bit of Texas history for you.
yeah, and there's just some pictures of the old ways they used to dig the pits, and
Mm-hmm.
so forth, and you can see them, cooking these pigs and cows and stuff over the top of them.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some pictures of and you'll still see these signs that exist today. That's like Smitty's down in Lockhart, and notice he says
Mm-hmm.
Market, he doesn't say Smitty. And if you're ever down there, stop in, see James. He runs the place now, him and his family. I forget how long, what level of descendant he is, but he's a really great guy. He'll take you back into the back and show you all kinds of things. Krause's Market, that was the other original family in the Central Texas, and he also says Market, right? So anyway, I don't want to take up our whole show with that, but I thought
No, it's great to have the visuals of all of it. No, it's wonderful.
I try to tie this idea together of how this all started very early in history, or what we
Mm-hmm.
consider modern history, and there's all these techniques and stuff that melted together and blended, between indigenous populations, French, the Spanish, and then finally the Mexican.
Yeah, and you can see why by the trails that they took through our country. Very interesting. So, is the smoking that you mentioned, is that one of the key elements that distinguish Texas style from others? Is the what
Yeah,
is that distinguishes?
most of the Texas barbecue is indirect cooking or smoke pit barbecue. You do have some famous ones like Salt Lick, which was on the Chisholm Trail, and in their case, they built great big limestone fire pits, right? And then what they would do is they would hang the meat on hooks, right, around the chimney of the fire. So yeah, they're smoking, but it's more of a direct smoke versus an offset smoke that like a smokehouse would use.
And then my next question is, what? How has the availability of a certain meats influenced the development of Texas barbecue? You kind of already
Again,
talked about
yeah, it kind of starts with the Longhorns, right? And because up until that point, it was all pork and chicken and turkey and pretty much whatever else you could hunt, right? But when that southern expansion hits and really gets the introduction to cattle, right, and learns about how to process cattle, sell cattle, preserve cattle through smoking. That's really why you see such a big deal being made about brisket, right? Which was the scrap meat
that. Yeah,
off the
yeah,
front of the cow.
yeah, yeah. And how did you fall in love with Texas barbecue? Did you grow up cooking barbecue? Did you start barbecuing as an adult, or what is it that kind of caught your eye about Texas barbecue?
Well, again, from a Texas point of view, barbecue is just a food group, right? And we all grow up with it. And
Uh-huh.
as I've said before, you start very young, playing, building with the fires and doing that kind of chore, right? While the parents would do the smoking, and then over
Mhm.
time, as you got older, you just did more of it, and then as teenagers, of course, you have that embedded into you. You're out camping out in the wilderness. You learn how to do all these things, and it just becomes ingrained in who you are, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so when you come to a different part of the country like I have that doesn't have that lineage, right, and you start doing it, it's just a different thing, right, and so it's great to be able to bring it into the Pacific Northwest and combine some of this with what our indigenous folks do, the Indians, with the smoking of the salmons, and if you notice the way that if you've ever seen a salmon bake, the tribes here, they dig the big pit in the ground just like the old ones that I showed you in Texas, right? And they make that big alder fire. They get the coals there, then they lean the fish, on the cedar sticks over the coals, right? That's
Hmm.
the same kind of thing that was going on in the South, right? And so it's interesting how, to me, about how it all blends together, right?
Yeah, it is. That's very interesting. Wow. Fish and meat. I like both of them. I like brisket and I'll take both the red meat and the fish. So, what's your favorite Southern barbecue meat? Which I think we all already know. You've made
Oh,
it pretty
brisket. Yeah.
famous here in Gig Harbor. And why is brisket your favorite?
It's just it's just something I grew up with, right? So I eat a lot of it because of that. But I don't get me wrong. I also eat, as the boys will tell you here in the store, I eat a lot of chicken. I eat a lot of the turkey, right? I do some ribs, and then every now and again I'll do some sausage or something along that line. But for the most part, I'll go to brisket, and I love the pulled pork. Sometimes I'll just eat a whole tray of pulled pork just by myself if I'm really hungry.
Good to know. Not surprising. So, we've talked about the key elements that distinguish Texas style barbecue, how the availability of certain meats influence the development of Texas barbecue, what's Gary's favorite, and of course, it's brisket. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about the history of barbecue or anything that just what fascinates you the most about the history of barbecue?
Just to understand, really, it's not so much about barbecue; it's to understand the commonalities of how people fed themselves. Right? We lose track of this today in our economy, in our society, where everything is so easy and so free. You just go to the
Hmm.
store. Um, I try to explain. There's another part to this presentation where we go into the hardships. I mean, I want you to stop and think for a second. You don't speak English, right? You've just probably within weeks you came in through New York. You came down this eastern seaboard, and you intercepted this migration of people that were going west. Okay, well, if you're leaving out of Georgia and you're trying to go across the United States, I mean, just think, all you have is your wagon train and you're walking. Okay, and what are you about to get into? Right, you're about to go through the swamps, right, over in Florida, right, and then you're going to go through the Badlands, right, as you go through the northern parts of Mississippi, Alabama, right,
Hmm.
and then you're going to run into this mountain range, right, that's over there, and then you're going to come across this gigantic mile wide river, right, called the
Hmm.
Mississippi,
Hmm.
right, and then you get to pass all that, then you're going to go into a desert. Okay, and as you're traveling west, there is in every day, every single day of your life, you've got to eat at least twice a day, right? You've got to find provision. There's no stores, right? I mean, you might get lucky if you're following the train tracks for a while, that general stores that popped up,
Hmm.
where they built train stations. um, but beyond that, you're going hundreds of thousand miles on a wagon or on foot, right? Not hundreds of thousand, thousands of miles, right?
Sure.
And I mean, you're basically hunting is what you're doing as you're walking across, walking across the South, and
Hmm.
putting up with all this and trying to feed everybody. Right? It's um, it was not easy for them to make it at all, right? And so that's the reason, the roots of all this food are so basic and fundamental to the people, right? The smoking the meats because you had to find a way to preserve them, right? The making of cheese because you had dairy cows and you could make milk and you could make cheese, right? And you could grow, your pickles, right? You could grow your okra, right? And because okra, the reason it's so popular in the South is because it likes being in a desert, right? The hotter it is, the more they like it, the more the plant will produce, right? And so okra become a mainstay in addition to being one of the most healthy foods, right? So then you see the Louisiana, just take okra by itself. You're looking at Louisiana, who develops the whole gumbo idea, right? And or the boiled okra kind of stuff, right? And then you got us trying to fry it in lard fat over in Central Texas, right? But
I never
anyway,
understood the okra thing. Never got into okra. I understood
right?
it needed sauce. That's for sure. I couldn't eat it by itself. I
But
never understood
there's
okra.
all these facets, right, of how this migration of mass of people feed themselves every day, gain the strength it took to overcome all those adversities, and so you hear me on some of the other talks I do, about the true meaning of community and solving problems and working together, right?
Mhm.
And you get a mass of people that get together that are working really good, and I think if you can go with the stretch with my stretch here, that's how some of these towns got made. They just decided, okay, I've gone far enough. I like it where I'm at, right?
Mhm.
And I'm just going to start living right here,
Yeah.
right?
Work,
Because there's
work
nothing that
together.
says you can't back
Yeah.
then, right? Because there's nothing here, and so all that wrapped up together, right? And it's always been just a fun thing to study, right? Is how did these people feed themselves, right? There were not very many options, right? You had the pigs, you had some cows, you had some chicken, and occasionally, if you were in the right part of the country, you could find turkey, right, and hunt it. And
Hmm.
of course, you had your deer meats and your wild hog and so on, right? But that was all there was to eat, to harvest.
I'm adding to our notes here. Well, thank you, Gary. You certainly know a lot more than I do about the history of barbecue, and there's a lot of facets to it, and it's definitely integral to the history of our country. It's fascinating to me. So thank you for all of that, and we always want to touch base on the philanthropy and what's going on. With I know you don't even like to call it philanthropy, but the things that are going on in the community, and I know you have the senior movies. Are they still happening? And the bingo, and kind of what's going on?
Yeah, last Friday of every month we do the free senior movie,
Hmm.
and the vouchers usually start going out the middle of the month. Vouchers are not tickets. Vouchers are just vouchers because I want to make sure I don't invite too many people for the theater that I rented. Right, so
Hmm.
that's really all they are. This week, so next week, the 25th is our next one, and we're showing Oppenheimer on that one.
Nice.
Uh, and then probably the Indiana Jones one next month.
Hmm.
So we have that going on. We have the authors in the house, and so we've got M.K. McDaniel's in right now with her book. And if you haven't had a chance to stop by and read the preface on her book, and talk to her, I would highly recommend doing it. It's a fascinating story. My wife really loved it when she read it. Now my daughter's reading it, so she'll be here the rest of the week. And then it looks like we got EC Murray next week coming in. So we're doing that. We're in the planning stages right now. We're getting ready to fire up the counter takeover for the youth. So we've already got um, uh, or we got a few that are in place. We got Discovery Elementary coming in. We've got the Gig Harbor varsity volleyball coming in. I think they're going to kick off the season for the counter takeovers. We've got Kiwanis that's going to do a week. So those are just the ones I have off my memory right now, and I know that we've got them all the way out into November right now. So
Nice.
so yeah, the counter takeovers are very popular still, and we're going to try to get that streamlined into a new level. Right,
So
trying to
what is a counter takeover?
So this is really simple. You have a group, and whether it's a youth organization or a school or whatever, these PTAs they say go to barbecue to you, go buy your dinner, go do this and that. Drop your receipt in the jar by the register, and then as you remember, I grab at the end of the week. I grab all those receipts up, we add them up, and the school gets 10% of whatever the proceeds were that week for those receipts, right? So they go out and they say, go do this. Be sure to drop your receipt. And of course, we love it because it's kind of symbiotic relationship, right? And so we love doing those things and the clubs and stuff. Basically, just having access to revenue that they would never have.
Hmm. Yeah. So if I'm interested in purchasing some of your barbecue, where can I find you?
You can find me at the store.
Where's
We're
the
here at Gig
store?
Harbor, right? 4814 Point Fosdick, right? We're right next door to Ace Hardware. And we'd love to see you.
All right. And if I want to call in my order, I call 253-313-5656.
Six. Yep.
Or if I want to talk about catering with you, are you still booking up for the fall?
Yeah, we're booking out October, November right now for caterings, and so we're pretty much stacked. In fact, we're oversold almost right now for the rest of August, so we're not taking anything new in the short term. And I've got to get these young men that work for me out for a break because they are 100% exhausted. They
Yeah,
have,
for
I
sure.
forget what it was, but we've done just some of the stats. I have it posted out there in the lobby, but I don't remember. If you give me a second, I can look it up. But um, I know that the numbers that we had posted. Um, Here we go. It'll come up here in a second. Yeah. So just to give the people some kind of an idea what this little store has done just so far this year. We've done over 25 tons of brisket, right, in the store. We've done over a ton of beef ribs. We've done 10 tons of pulled pork. We've done 6.5 tons of pork ribs, another 4.7 tons of chicken, right, 2 tons of turkey, and 1.6 tons of sausage just in the first 8 months of this year. I'm telling you, when I say these boys back there that work for me are tired, I am not lying to you. They
Yeah,
are, they are,
that's a
they are,
lot of
they
meat.
are, yeah. And we still have the holiday season to go, right? It
That
is
is insane. Wow.
yeah,
What
yeah.
was the chicken? What
So,
was the chicken number again? I missed it.
4.7 tons. And that's a lot of chicken thighs, by the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Wow, very
That's
impressive.
what we do here. So,
Yeah.
one of the messages that I hope everybody knows that we are deeply proud of the support that the community gives us, right, and supports of us, and the tolerance they give us. Because just like all barbecue joints, we do run out. I think we referenced that earlier in the call, right?
Mhm.
But we are doing our level best to cook as much as we can, and I'm doing everything I can to try to find a way to get a another building somewhere where I can cook some more, right? And try to get the supply because obviously there's a demand for it, and we just have to figure out some way to affordably get into a space where I can cook and get more barbecue made in a day.
So would you say call early, come and order early, order online? How do I address that if I want to make sure I have brisket for a Friday night event or something that I'm planning? Do you want them to call, or
So
you can just read the
anyway, I don't
screen?
know if you can hear me. Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you. I can hear you fine.
Because
Yeah.
I can't hear you anymore because the headset gave up. But
Oh,
um, hopefully we're done.
yeah, we're good.
You can give
So
me
if
sign
you
language to let me know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, just read the screen. Read the screen. The screen. If you run into our supply challenges, we're so sorry. Please come early, call us early, order your food ahead of time. And certainly, if you're looking at catering for the fall, you want to be calling or emailing Gary now, not later. There's things book up rather quickly. So here's where you can visit Barbecue to You. Here's the number to call to order. You can also order through DoorDash and other online services. And if you're interested in catering, you can email Gary directly here at this email, or you can fill out the form on the website. We do have a new website coming, which is super exciting. Be looking for that in the next couple of weeks. We'll be happy to get all of your feedback on that. We're going to have some new content and some extended blog posts and some really fun things coming. So thank you for listening today, and we'll be back in touch next month. Thanks, Gary.